All right, I think we're good. All right, welcome everyone to episode number 4 of the True Shot Lodge podcast. I am Moofz. We have Prox and Dilly from his car phone. Just got out of
What's good,
class. And we have a special guest with us, Cauthonluck, who is a hunter, a speedrunner, classic boy, and he's done some other stuff in the past. Cauthon, can you give us sort of a quick intro of sort of who you are for those who don't know who you are?
I guess I am a old ass grizzled gamer. Done a bunch of esports in the past. Uh, Played Smash Brothers, StarCraft 2, Heroes of the Storm competitively for quite some time. Switched into coaching recently since I'm old as the trees. But that didn't stop me from heeding the call to come back to Classic, do a little speed running, and relive those glory days.
Nice, nice, nice. I don't know who's older, you or Prox. Prox is grandpa in WoW terms.
Yeah, go fuck yourself.
I
It's
feel like
always
that's
on.
asking like it's like asking what came first, the chicken or the egg, bro.
Man, fucking the chicken, and if she tells you otherwise, she's lying. Don't listen to her.
All right, guys. So this episode is dedicated towards Classic, since everyone knows that Classic WoW is coming out on Monday. Global launch. Everyone's super excited. Just a quick recap. In the previous couple episodes, we've been talking about Eternal Palace, the Race to World First. Last week's episode, we had Roger Brown guest star. If you haven't seen that, it was an awesome episode. We've been talking about, beguiling, all that stuff, but now we're going to hit the classic. So, Prox, Dilly, and Cauthon, obviously, all three of you guys, what are y'all's opinions on classic and the release? Are y'all excited?
I think classic, regardless if you like it or you want to play it. I feel like it just brings so much value to the game because I think the best thing to come out of classic is devs like having like a look back of like what was good and what was bad. Because there's bad things in both versions of the game, but I think it gives you a good idea of what actually works and what doesn't, and what's something that's like annoying and bad in a way that is actually like good for the game. Like for example, time forging. People mention that everyone hates that shit, but like some things in classic that are annoying kind of build character to the game, like no groups and things like that. So I feel like in general, it's just like a good way for Blizzard to really reassess WoW and how they want to improve it for the future.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's also like this nostalgia, right? Like a lot of
Yeah,
people
of course.
liked,
Like for hunters, it's nice
vanilla
to
and
have like a
BC and stuff,
I think
and
it's almost entirely nostalgia. Even a lot of the like this works, that didn't work. I don't think you'll get a lot of that at all. This is still not going to be a very good representation of what it was like, because you can't retardify your brain back to what it was like back then. Already we see add-ons coming out that solve this whole problem of, oh man, I spent 6 hours looking for this UBRS group, and when I got there, fucking S-Force ninja'd my shit anyway. That's the whole day gone, and I sat in queue for 4 hours just to get that. Like, none of that's going to exist. So much of the stuff isn't going to exist anyway, and when you do get to these things, you can't take back the 15 years of knowledge. So it's very, very good for nostalgia. Unfortunately, I feel like some people have either overhyped it too much, that they'll have to be disingenuous when it is here. Otherwise, they would look like a fool. So they're going to have to buy in and say some things they don't actually believe in to maintain some of the illusion. I feel like the people that are racing and trying to get to 60 as fast as possible are missing the point. Like, realistically, the journey and experiencing that is kind of all there is.
well, I
The
mean,
exception, I guess, will be the
I,
people who are
I
like, I
actually
just want to kill boomers. Like, I understand, and yeah, that's
I
fine.
mean,
But
everyone's playing for different purposes, right? Like, I mean, you have the people that just want to play casually, and then you have the people that want to speed run, not because, I mean, Cauthon, you're a speedrunner, right? Like, why are you speedrunning? Just to do it, or
Well, the first thing I always recommend is, my man, play the way you want to play. Everyone's gonna enjoy classic in a different way. Some people want to go through all the lore, the exploration, etc. For me, and a lot of people in this day and age, speedrunning is just something that they enjoy. They find fun. Back when I played the game initially, I had no real idea what speedrunning was. It took me a long time to get to 60. But in this day and age, the popularity of it has risen quite a bit. So some people really just find that to be fun. They find the competition to be fun. And honestly, speedrunning is only a drop in the bucket for me in terms of the things that I enjoy about classic WoW. So even
Yeah.
just getting to 60 isn't, the whole journey. The PvP in vanilla, the open world PvP, and yeah, I mean, even the dueling, I find to be much more engaging than any of the later expansions PvP. And I played Arena in a lot of WoW expansions.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think I kind of like in a lot of ways. I actually kind of agree with that from like the PvP standpoint. There's actually some things with the classic classes and the class design actually feels better than like some of the current stuff. I mean, that doesn't go for every class. Like paladins in vanilla, like I swear to God, they're like the most brainless, like boring shit ever. But honestly, when I think about playing like a range hunter in PvP right now and comparing that to classic's actually so much more depth and more interesting. And I feel like that's the kind of thing like I'd rather like PvP as like a classic hunter, for example, than like go in current arena and try to play like an MM or BM hunter, because you just like you have no kit. Like there's so many things to your class that are just there that are really cool. And I mean, they can be fluff in non-PvP situations, I guess, but like in PvP, like there's just so many little abilities that are cool, like Hunter's Mark and things like that, that have like so many infinite uses or stuff that is removed from the game. So I think that's why I like classic and the concept of it the most is just based on that, like just the little things that actually give flavor to your character. Like
like
there's definitely an attempt at that.
the biggest caveat, I guess, will be like, yeah, absolutely, play the way you want to play, but understand that not all paths are open or exist. If you've played WoW for a long time, you're used to, it's not always the most efficient way or the best way, but you're used to basically being able to do anything whatever way you want. Pick a character, doesn't matter what, pick a spec, it doesn't matter what, you can play it. The reality is, you're not going to, if you're like, man, I really want to do a boomy, you're not. If you want to roll a druid, get used to healing, because like that's your option. And there are a few things like that, and that's actually part of the charm of the game, and that will help you realize, oh, here's how some of the game has changed, here's how it was back then, here's how it is now. And there's a few things like that just scattered all over the show. There is a reason why Arena was born when we got bored of throwing somebody into Blackrock Mountain for the 8,000th time. And some of these things will be great to start off with them, but just appreciate things for what they are as you go through them, rather than trying to race to the end game like is normal for WoW, because it's going to be a bit lacking. That's fine. Like, if anything, the knowledge of what that was like should help you appreciate more what we have today. Like, especially when if you're someone, and I'm very guilty of this, if you're someone who likes to bitch and moan at the devs for being retarded at balance, and you have a look at how much it used to be off compared to now, you might be a little bit more tongue in cheek.
Yeah, just looking at some of the tiers, like I think WoW had just released like a tier grade for all like the DPS and stuff like that. And you have, of course, Fury Warrior way at the top, then you have like Hunter, Mage, a couple other classes, and you just have like some of the dot classes, right? Like Shadow Priest, Boomkin, like all the so if y'all don't know in vanilla, right, like all the dots, there's only, correct me if I'm wrong, there's 13 or 16 dot slots, right? And they get overwritten to a certain point, right?
Yeah, I believe they're starting with 16 on launch.
16, okay.
Yeah, I think it was 8 on the initial launch, but yeah, so a lot of classes that have, not so great debuff slots, like Hunters, you will never be using your Serpent Sting in raids, because that takes a spot of a more useful debuff, for example.
Right.
That sounds like an other people problem, not a me problem. I'm letting it go.
I'm getting my Serpent Stings out. But yeah, so on that topic,
You gotta get the Serpent Stings out and then spit on the Shadow Priest in your fucking raid. Call the bitch.
It's toxic, Zilly.
I mean, you gotta let him know who's the alpha predator.
Okay. So I'm sure y'all seen all the drama on Twitter about the looking for group add-on. What are y'all's stances on pro or anti looking for group add-on? I mean, just add-ons in general, right? Because they obviously will make Classic a lot easier than when it was back then.
I'm actually against like the add-ons in general, like weak auras. I feel like that does so much more than just that. Like weak auras, I feel like is such a exploitable add-on. I think it's probably just best to not have stuff like that. But I mean, from what I've seen, people are saying that the LFG add-on actually isn't like a auto thing or something like that. Someone was saying that it was like an improved bulletin board. I mean, I haven't seen it, so I feel like it actually depends on what the LFG add-on actually does. Like if it replicates something like live, then yeah, then it's horrible. But it depends on
I think separate from even the add-on itself and just think of the concept. The problem is you can't put that genie back in the bottle. You can't say, hey, we're making the game how it was 15 years ago, and the way that people do things and how that has evolved. You'll just stop doing that. You'll go back to doing it how it was back then. Like, even if there's no fucking add-on, the way that people will look for a group and fill a group is not going to be the same as what you did back then. There's so many different things. The impersonality that is in pugs, where like they won't say Dilly, they'll be like Hunter, do this, Hunter, do that, like all that sort of shit. That's gonna stay. That's going to exist. That is just that's not even a wild thing. Like, that is how gaming has evolved over the last 15 years. That's just fucking the world we live in today. You can't put that back in the bottle. And so as an extension of that, there are a lot of these things that apply to Classic, where it's like people are like, oh, no changes, it's got to be the way it was back then. It's like, you need to accept, bro, that some things are not going to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, to an extent too. I mean, you're going to be forced to like actually still have groups, like just by the nature of things. That you can't just like solo do it basically the same way you can with LFG, LFR. Like, you're still going to have to like want a coordinated group. And I mean, at the same time, I think like another argument I keep seeing is like streamers also are going to have like that shit ruined. I mean, if anything, if there was something that ended up being like a really LFG thing, I would find it interesting if they had a way to implement it that it only worked on like the streamer servers and like not on the
like streamers are the only people who I think legitimately are not allowed an opinion on this. Sorry, but go fuck yourselves.
No,
people who are like, oh man, I can instantly fill a group anytime I want with people who will like be completely sycophantic and throw themselves at my feet.
I mean, there's a different level of streamers, right?
Easy.
Like, if you're talking about like Asmongold, like
and there's people who stream. People who stream are not streamers. You know the difference. You can be facetious about it all you want, but you know the difference.
Sometime, bro.
Okay, Dilly.
Cauthon, what's your one of your videos?
Cauthon, what's your opinion on the add-ons?
That I wouldn't just like have people, but it's also because of by nature I'm like a PvP. Like it I don't think it just depends on that. I think it also depends on the type of streamer. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, no one came into this game 15 years ago with a massive group of friends who already play and all these social networks already established. That alone changes things so much.
Yeah, and then you have like Discord and stuff like that too, where people are going to be looking for groups and
yeah, exactly. Like, there's so much to change. You can't put any of that back in the bottle, right?
Yeah, I'm with you on the fact that it's definitely not going to be the same, even if they do remove these add-ons. People are gonna come up with outside ways to form groups. I do think that for the first couple months at least, if there's a way for Blizzard to stop those type of add-ons for working, they should. I think it will just be really interesting in general to see the difference in going back to Classic of where people have to, either way, you have to put way more effort into creating a group. And it tends to form more personal relationships when you actually find people that are good. You join each other's guilds, friends lists, etc. And people aren't just boiled down to a gear score number, because that type of thing doesn't really work so much in Classic. The gear score number is pretty unrepresentative because a lot of the best in slot pieces are low level gear or things that you wouldn't typically, there'll be a lot of like warriors and hunters wearing, leather gear, shamans wearing cloth, that type of thing, using stuff from the levels 30s and 40s. And so not only is gear score pretty unrepresentative, but it kind of takes away from the whole like community aspect, and
Yeah.
also
Well,
just knowledge of your classes.
one
I
of
think
the interesting
no.
things.
Dilly messed
Oh,
us up.
what did you do?
Dilly messed us
Oh
up.
dear.
Uh,
I assume he got home and he's switching over. But one of the
Dilly messed us up
things
so bad.
I'm assuming. Oh gosh.
Oh no, oh no. Dilly. Okay, we have a
All
messed
right.
up window for a second until Dilly joins
Okay.
us.
Anyway, like if Blizzard were to say, right, we're going to block this, that is a huge admission of fault on their end. In that single move, and that by blocking it, they are saying we were wrong. We made a change that was unhealthy for the game. We fucked up. We are part of what started the decline of WoW. Like in that one move, they have to admit so much fault that up to date, they've never been willing to show that level of humility. They've never been willing to show that level of ownership for their mistakes. So it'd be interesting and that it would be a huge turnaround for them. But so far, they've not been that big of a human being to be capable of that. So we'll see.
Yeah. God,
Because don't get me wrong, I do think like LFR and looking for truth has been bad for everything. I don't think you can take it back. I don't think you should. I don't think those things have been a good development for the game, but I also don't think you'll ever catch a Blizzard dev admitting that. Like, speak clearly into the microphone, Ion.
Yeah. But I mean, even like add-ons aside, right? Like you already have pre-made servers and you have pre-made groups of people going to dedicated servers, pre-made guilds, and then you also have things like layering, which is totally different. Like obviously they didn't have layering back in vanilla, right? So like that alone makes leveling and just, things like that easier, I guess, right? Because you can just sort of layer hop.
Well, I
Um,
mean, we didn't have a massive inflood of players right on day dot either. We had tighter server queues because we couldn't handle as many on the servers. So it's not like it's like, hey, this totally changes how it was. If anything, it's probably stopping it from getting way beyond what it was like and keeping it more akin to it. You just have a little bit of separation for the period of leveling. You didn't have 5 million people logging on the first day being like, we're here, we're ready to go, and the service just accommodating us all. It was very normal to set up shit to stop your thing from going AFK, so you just didn't connect through the night, or to start queuing to get in almost like the night before on some realms.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that it's not going to be anything like the initial Classic launch in terms of player knowledge, having all these pre-set up things, especially streaming in general. I think that a lot of people, including Blizzard, are just surprised at how many people simply like the game. Because there's been very popular private servers, the last 5-10 years, and if it was really just a nostalgia thing, why would all those privates like all the people that play those private servers for years, you just get more and more numbers on them, and it got to the point where Blizzard just couldn't ignore that audience. It's people just enjoy the game. It's not like they're trying to relive their past. And I think that'll become clear with the popularity of Classic WoW that there are some things about that style of game that are a little more old school that people actually enjoy.
Yeah. Oh my God, we're fixed. Dilly's back.
Yeah, it hung up when I hung up my car, I guess.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
looked so bad. It was all like scattered everywhere. Okay, we're
I-
good.
yeah.
Your beautiful face is here now. We can start.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, okay. So let's get into hunter specific things. So, Cauthon, what are your strengths versus weaknesses for classic hunter compared to some other classes?
In what role? Leveling,
Uh,
PvP,
I mean,
raid?
I guess everything. I guess let's start with leveling.
Okay, so leveling, hunters are the default if you don't want to play with anyone and want like kind of the smoothest 1 to 60 route without interacting and just doing your own thing. Hunters are kind of the default strongest for that.
So
Um,
questing, right? Not dungeon leveling.
yeah, there's certain spots where they're good for dungeon leveling as well. But in general, if you just want a 1 to 60 solo on your own, Hunter is a really strong choice for that. It's not to say that they're better than all other classes. Like mages can definitely level as fast or faster than hunters 1 to 60 on their own. It's considerably more of like a skill thing with mages because you have to know very, very exact spots, very exact builds to AoE grind. Hunters, you can kind of explore, do your own thing. In terms of
like any solo content today, it's just easier and more relaxed on a hunter. It's not always the fastest, but it's so on that dungeon leveling question though. Most of just remember, if you're playing on your own, you're not playing in a group. Like you're not dungeon leveling, you would lose way too much time finding groups to go into the dungeon in the first place. Like, there's so much of a change for what you're used to. Like you can't just jump into the same logic for how you do things today for that.
Yeah. God, yeah, you have to walk to all the dungeons. You can't just instant teleport. Man.
You can't hit 3 buttons and then not talk to the other 4 people for 10 minutes and then be done.
Yeah.
No, I feel like that'll still make like kind of interesting situations, like especially when I think about like the streamer servers, because like I just remember seeing I can't even remember, I think it was Scarlet Monastery, but it was like a bunch of the streamers were trying to run that at one point in the classic beta, and it's like you have like Asmongold and Esvon who are Alliance, and then you have like people like Sidu and Snuts who are Horde, and then it's like then you just have everyone just killing each other, and it's like a nice massacre because everyone has to run to the dungeon, and then it's just funny because then they have to go all the way from the graveyard, walk back, get there, and then get their shit kicked in, and it's just
Which is great because that's an authentic experience. Like,
yeah, like that. No, that's a legit.
There was so much killing in that fucking area outside that courtyard. Sorry, we interrupted that.
Yeah, no, I mean that's like something authentic about Classic that I think will still be there, and like I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. Like I actually think that that's something that no matter how much time has changed, that is an experience that just will exist, which is definitely not bad.
I mean, I guess I'll just quickly say, like, don't get me wrong. I know I'm being negative, but I'm actually quite positive about large aspects of Classic. It's just times where I see it being misrepresented and people's expectations being set falsely. I'm like, look, temper those, appreciate it for what it is, and you'll have a much better time than if you come into this expecting it to be something else.
That's also why I think with like the LFG thing too, you know, in a way it's like you're still gonna have to go through that shit no matter what if you LFG. So you better like be cool with the people. Like you're gonna have to still make yourself friends. Like it is gonna force you to still have to have friends by nature of how the entire like game works.
Oh no, I need to make friends. I don't have any.
Yeah, I can see why.
Wow.
That's very understandable.
You don't need friends. That's why you play a hunter in vanilla.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
as well.
Okay, so talked about leveling. What about hunters in raid? I know there's a huge misconception that hunters are awful in game. You sort of touch on that, Cauthon?
So I wouldn't call that a misconception. In the very end game, when you're just looking at raw damage numbers, they're definitely terrible compared to, you know, other classes that are an absolute bis from Nax and all that. However, I think that's kind of swayed people the wrong way in terms of playing the game up until the very end, because hunters are perfectly fine in pretty much all content. Like the first year of WoW is out, they're not really at a disadvantage in anything. They're good at world PvP, they're good at leveling, they're fine in dungeons. They're not in high demand for dungeons or raids, but they're definitely fine for it. You always need some of them for utility in raids, so it's not like there's going to be raids without hunter spots. So as long as you're a good hunter, you can find a spot.
Yeah, I mean that's like the whole basis of the stuff with Classic. Like if your class wasn't like good meter wise, like you had some utility that made people want you, which I think isn't it. It's not a horrible mechanic, like or concept rather, because like versus that or you have everyone just a damage bot, so whoever does the most DPS, like you just bring in like Classic. Just it's not that game. But if people are thinking of the current game where it is like that, and then they look at it that way, it's like, oh, I'm not going to play this because it doesn't have the damage numbers. I mean, it's like you still want to think of your classes based on like what they actually bring to the table outside of the damage. Like you have to think outside of that. I mean, because it's based on the class, not just which color you pick and then what color abilities you have. Like it's actually more to that, which is like the whole point of it.
The other thing is Like it honestly doesn't matter, because if you're a mythic clearing guild, if you're a mythic clearing player and you're like, what's this gonna be like? You're not hindering your guys. You're still probably going to more or less one bang it and be like, all right, that was the first night this came out. What are we doing tomorrow? So like, don't stress about that.
Yeah, like people are so good that it's not
The,
gonna.
the one thing that I guess is an interesting dynamic is, at the moment in WoW, if your spec is bad, you hang on to it. You're like, Blizzard will notice. They'll apply a change. I mean, they won't and they don't, but we still hold on to this belief anyway. You're like, they'll notice. But even then, your definition of bad is you're like 5% behind the pack kind of thing. But you're like, no, look, I'll stick it out. I'm loyal to this spec, and who knows what's around the corner. But when and everyone else knows what's around the corner, and salvation isn't coming, then that becomes an interesting dynamic, because you're like, okay, I am going to burden my guys, but understand as well, you guys are carrying an empty fucking coffin. There's no load to burden. It's fine. Don't worry about it. The content that you're doing is not particularly challenging. That's not why you guys are doing it. So at that point, I think you're all fine to play whatever you want. And as long as you have brains that have developed as much as they have from the last 15 years, you're going to have a good, easy time and enjoy it together.
Yeah. I mean,
if you're like, I have
Plus, people
to
might want the
re-roll.
challenge. No, people might
Yeah.
want the challenge to have the shit class at
Look,
this point.
yeah, like if you guys are like, oh, no, we've all got to re-roll to this spec and we've got to min-max and do this perfectly, you're going to fucking steamroll it anyway, and you're going to have lost a lot of the enjoyment if you weren't playing the thing you wanted to play and all of that shit. Just do what you want. It's fine. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, like all those people that are, currently that are hunter one tricks, or they play hunter because they maybe we'll be good next year, and they're just playing hunter. They don't want to switch to, well, you already know how hunter is going to be throughout all of vanilla, or all of classic rather. And so if you're playing hunter, you know that, hey, I'm not going to be best in raid, but I'm really good at world questing. I'm really good at questing. I'm really good at PvP, or whatever. And so you sort of know that ahead of time. And if you want to be a parse monkey, go play warrior or mage or something that does this top and meters, which I guess they do have details and stuff working in classic now, right? The add-ons.
Plus, if you really want, like I said, you're always going to need some hunters. So it doesn't even matter if you're, doing 30% less damage in a mage late game. As long as you're one of the best hunter players, your spot is not going to be, open for contention.
Right, yeah.
Plus, it takes so long into the classic process where hunters really fall off. Their big issue is they don't scale with the absolute endgame gear nearly as well as other classes. So it's going to be like a year and a half down the line before you really start getting outpaced. And if you want to be a, parse monkey, like you said, you have plenty of time to level an alt and start gearing that up for Nax, and then switch mains if you want. If you're just worried about doing absolute top DPS, there's nothing that would stop you from enjoying a hunter and playing all the content normally for like a year and a half, even if you were worried about being top of the DPS meters at the end game.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
Yeah. All right, so talked about hunters and leveling and raid. All right, let's hit PvP. Dilly, your favorite.
Mm-hmm.
So what are we? Aren't we just like wing clip bots in PvP?
I mean, yeah, the wing clip, you can have the improved conk shot. I mean, scatter shot's nice. Is it the counter attack? I think it is. Yeah, I like that. I don't know. When I was playing it, I had a lot of fun on it, especially like when they had the pre-made like 58 server for the AV testing, and you could just duel people. Like, I actually thought it was so fun to play hunter. I mean, like aspect of the cheetah has a lot of value because people don't have as much mobility, so it's like just kiting people with conk and aspect of the cheetah is nice.
Does it daze you in classic?
Yeah, but people don't have as many like ranged attacks, like for example, or you can just like, I mean, you can just cancel it if you know you're gonna get hit by the ranged attack because you have enough time. There's so little ranged attacks that you have enough time to see the animation from, like, say if a warrior like throws you or tries to shoot you, and then you're fine. And I mean, realistically, you could also just like buy yourself time to just like max range someone as well. Yeah. So there's a lot of things with it. Make it like cool, I think. Yeah. That's one of my favorite abilities. Like the old aspect of the cheetah, like just knowing when to toggle it on and off, like that's really fun to do up until they kind of prune that eventually. But yeah.
Dilly's gonna be that guy to level and just sit at Stranglethorn for like 15 levels, just PvPing everyone.
Definitely would kill people in Gurabashi all day.
Some of my most favorite memories are running around with a priest friend on the opposite faction around Stranglethorn on like Ventrilo with him. And I'm just fucking MCing random horde people so that I could turn around and like just fucking kill them. Oh, it was the best trolling. Because then they could like message you all their angst. Like there's so many things like that that are just legit going to be a good time. Like that is the
Well,
that's
there's
the value. And like that's the nostalgia part, like the like that's what I'm really going to enjoy. Not the racing to 60 and re-clearing content I did 15 years ago.
Yeah.
It's going to be like the fucking really ruining someone's day in Stranglethorn Vale or
one of the best things that I actually seen was there's another PvP hunter, Jellybeans. He was playing classic and he went into the leveling zone with like it is the Elwyn leveling zone. He got one of the wolves, right? And he just tamed like the lowest level wolf he could find.
Yeah.
Eyes of the beast it. So some random guy is trying to level sees a wolf and is like, oh yeah, I need to
get flagged.
Yeah, and then they just get killed. I mean, that's just like the funniest shit. I mean, that's like something that hunters could always do with Eyes of the Beast. It's actually so sick. Like,
Yeah, you'll actually see paladins do the same thing. There's a spot in Tierguard Keep in Durotar, and they put on gear that makes them look like the pirates there, and they just wander around and try to mimic NPCs'
Just
movements
RP walk.
until somebody attacks them.
that's perfect.
But yeah, I personally can't wait to get back on the rooftops of Alliance towns and just
Yeah. Like,
you end up
Dude,
yeah.
the rooftops in Silithus when that whole AQ stuff was coming out. Holy shit, we killed so many people on this rooftop.
Well, just being on the roof of Goldshire is just cool to get onto.
But it would just
feel sick.
ruin
Yeah, you would hang out in
people's
Goldshire, Dilly.
fucking life. It was
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the closest place to like the capital city. That's a place that people go. Like if Horde are gonna come there, they're gonna come there. Well.
Yeah. Okay, Cthulhu, what okay, so you're speed leveling to 60. What are some realistic times that we're gonna look to see? Like people are saying 3-4 days playtime, I think. So what are your thoughts on a realistic time?
Actually, let me go really quickly over like the group PvP for people that don't know how that works so much in Classic, because we touched on the kiting aspect. You mentioned using cheetah and stuff a lot.
Yeah,
that's definitely most of the way you play, 1v1s or like open world where you're just doing small scale skirmishes.
You gonna mention the entrapment or something?
Yeah, there's a lot of kiting, a lot of just trying to max range people, but hunters actually play like kind of a different style in group PvP. Like when you're in battlegrounds or in your like big group PvPs or AV, even open world PvP where there's 5+ people fighting on each side. The hunters are much less of a like run away from everybody class. Like you're almost bait actually. And one of the best ways I like to play hunters is, so hunters, their best ability in PvP is actually Viper Sting.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Don't you just spam Viper Sting on everyone?
That's like your best thing up until like the end of PC.
Yeah, so it drains a good like 25-30% of people's mana bars until they start getting really good gear, and it has no cooldown. So your primary goal as a hunter in group PvP is not actually to like try to burst somebody down. It's to try to continually mana drain anybody with a mana bar, basically, because there's no cooldown on Viper Sting. And it's to take the entrapment talents in survival, and you're trying to get the melees to chase you because you're such a threat to their healers' mana bars. You put down frost traps. You try to get the melees to chase you into the frost trap, and so ideally you're keeping the casters low on mana. You're kiting and entangling the melees who are trying to chase the hunter down, who's harassing their backline casters. And even if you eventually die, usually the disruption you cause doing that type of thing is way better than just staying way max range and just DPSing the front target.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that hunters bring in terms of utility to group play that are way more than their actual damage numbers.
Man, I'm glad I can hit one button in PvP just like live.
Viper Sting, definitely toxic. It's actually why I would not want to play Arena in VC servers, because that's all you do as well. You just run around the pillar and you Viper Sting someone. I'm like, wow, that's like the most. It's really boring when you think of that in like an arena setting versus like an open world, because like at least you know something's happening. But I mean, when you have like an arena there, you're just like, yep, I'm just gonna Viper the Sting this guy, run around, do nothing, no one's gonna do anything, and then I win, and then just like smiling. It's like,
Yeah.
at a certain point, it's just it doesn't feel like there's much you can go up from there, you know, especially when there's so much to Hunter, and it's like when you're not getting to use so much to Hunter because just doing that one ability is like just the best option. It's
Yeah.
like, yep, it's not my thing.
Okay, so going back to my question, so what are some realistic times for speedrunning that we're gonna see?
So I think at this point, nobody really knows for sure what the first 60 is going to be in terms of the method to get there. If you're talking just, standard solo leveling with a hunter, the very best times you're going to see are probably going to be about 3.5 days of active playing.
Right.
3.5 to 4 would probably be the guess for most server firsts, and then if you're talking world first, without exploits or something people aren't thinking of, it's probably going to be closer to 3.5 days.
Okay.
However, there's a lot of uncertainty there because a lot of people have been claiming they're getting insane, group leveling experience numbers, like practicing on their own, private servers. I heard there's some guilds that are running these ridiculous, like 4 mage, 1 priest AoE grind groups, like all the way to 60, and they're claiming they're going to be able to get there in like under 3 days. And then they're going to run Molten Core with like 25 mages or something because they get there right away. Like there's lots of weird stuff like that, and some people claim that it's going to be super good, but nobody really knows in practice how fast those type of groups will be, or how fast mage AoE leveling will be 45 plus, because nobody got a chance to see it on the beta.
Well, also, like, how are you gonna know? Because like, what if there's just a bunch of people around those zones too, and then at that time, I mean, the assumption is that also you get ahead of everyone else, right? But then you do have to maintain that you are ahead of anyone else, and that's gonna be...
I'm playing on a PvP server, so I fully expect it will be slower than a pure PvE server. Like, you never know if people on each side will try to, assassinate the highest level on the other side and all that. And that's to be expected. That's part of the game. But yeah, there's a lot of uncertainty. So I don't think anyone really knows at this point if the first 60 is going to be some sort of like crazy dungeon grind group that has found like a great mob type or, area run to maybe not exploit, but to use for like, tens of levels and get experience that nobody else realized they could get. Or if it's going to be a mage that AoE grinds and gets their own layer and never has any competition the whole time, or if it's going to be a hunter who gets ahead of the pack early.
I think as long as they get ahead of like the bulk of players early on, they're always just going to be in an unpopulated zone anyway. That's how it was on like initial release. Like for a huge part of the actual Classic launch, I remember like barely ever seeing anyone because like not many of us took time off work to fucking sit there and grind out levels.
Yeah.
Not many.
Yeah, I think
worked back then because they were still children. But
I think the best chance you have of getting that record is being on the most unpopulated server.
Oh, for sure.
Launch. And obviously PvE. I mean that's like the best advantage you can get. But then how are you going to do that? Because someone will try to grief that too. Like you have to know someone will try to grief that and slow you down at least as much as possible in the start. So it's like you have
especially if you're streaming, right? Because I think Cauthon, I think you're streaming this, right? So
I'm streaming the whole leveling process, so I fully expect people will be trying to gank me. But
if you are in that world first spot, there's gonna be trolls that come and try and mess with you or whatever. But
I mean, it's unlikely for any of the big streamers, even if they were like insane at leveling, to get that because people are just going to try to agree with them. The only person I would expect would not get griefed was there any the Joanna person, the one that makes the leveling guide, right? I feel like people have enough respect that they probably would not grief that person. But let's say someone like
I think they'll definitely.
What fucking planet are you?
No, I'm comparing
from another planet.
No, I'm comparing the amount of person like griefing that person compared to like someone like a Soda Palmer and Asmogul, like even if they had equal viewers, right? Just by nature of the people.
It takes one.
Yeah, it does only take one. But I mean, you got to think of the dedication of the multiple amounts of retards versus maybe just one retard. That one retard eventually gets bored, right? So it's not going to be. you know,
No,
the likely you understand. It's like one is bad, and then there's an even worse level that you can go to. So it's like at least you're not there.
Wait.
You know?
Can we pause for a minute? Speaking of retards, can we look at this clip from our very own Dilly here?
Yo, what the
All
fuck?
right, all right.
Why you gotta
This
come for
is-
my neck like that?
All right, this
Dude,
is getting
2 seconds of this.
claiming names on Classic right here.
2 seconds of the server being.
Both
Oh
sides
my
and the war
God!
have,
What the? Dude,
뭐야?
2 seconds.
어떤 새끼야? 아씨, 누구야? 누구야?
Okay, we don't have to watch the rest. That was our very own Dilly right there. But yeah, what were we saying? I got sidetracked.
We were talking about the server being green. Like,
we were talking about retards, and then
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah.
retards. There we go.
I
there we
mean, no, the guy in chat, he said it. I mean, the fans are different between someone like John and another streamer, which is true. It's like that was pretty much my point. That like the streamers that watch like the viewers of Asmongold and Soda Poppin', they also watch those people to watch them fail, right?
Yeah.
Like there's going to be a good amount of people that want to watch Joanna succeed, and then there's always that toxic asshole no matter what, right? But when you're someone like Soda Pop and Asmongold, even if you are insane at leveling, your entire stream wants to grief you, even if they know you're like sick at it. Like they will actually want to watch you fail.
Yeah. Cauthon, what are your thoughts on Joanna? How do you compare your routes and stuff to his times back in the day?
Well, I guess we don't have to fully speculate because at the end of the beta, me and him and some other people as well all did 1 to 40 runs. So I guess, I mean, I have a lot of respect for what Joanna did, but he can't get close to my times at this point.
Yeah.
I think his 1 to 40 was even, multiple hours faster than his old run. I think it ended up being like 43 and a half hours or something, and his old run was 46, whereas mine was like under 36 hours. I think it was about 7.5 hours ahead of him just in
Yeah.
the 1 to 40 part.
Yeah.
But like in terms of what he does for the community, he was kind of one of the people that probably led to speedrunning being as popular as it is now. Plus, he's definitely not practicing for world first times perhaps the way he used to. So me and other people that are beating his times by large amounts now have certainly been playing far more than he has been. So I think he's mostly focused on like getting his guides out, working on getting money and stuff more so than racing at all.
Yeah, I mean, that being said, I mean, you even said it earlier, like you had no idea what speedrunning was back in Classic, right? And so I think that's sort of,
right.
While it was one of the earlier MMOs and like not many people played it initially and they sort of got into it as, not many people started in beta and played it right on release compared to how many people played it later on in Classic and BC and stuff like that. And so obviously there's a lot more people coming back to Classic to play it as opposed to when the first launch happened initially, right? So,
yeah,
and then,
totally different to have all that knowledge out there in advance versus it's slowly, organically being uncovered. And back then as well, there weren't really good means to disseminate that knowledge.
Yeah.
Whereas now, fucking, you're like, oh, this person's got a good time. Now I can, in one click, see what they ate for breakfast, see the results of their last colonoscopy. Like, instantly you get fucking everything you want to know about anything anyone's doing. So, yeah.
Let's see. What else haven't we talked about? Let's see. We talked about questing, dungeoning. Oh, I guess why did you, Cauthon, why did you choose Hunter versus, Warlock or whatever? Do you just prefer Hunter or?
Yeah, it was just the class I mained back on Vanilla. I played Vanilla for almost the entire time. Did pretty much all of the content in the game. Like, won a PvP contest. Did all the raids up till I think my group got to 4 horsemen and we weren't able to progress that, but we cleared every other PvE content. back in the day, you had to get very specific gear on a bunch of warriors to progress past 4 horsemen.
Yeah.
And our warriors, whenever they got geared up, would just sell their accounts on eBay. So we weren't able to get enough warriors to actually get past that
Monka
fight.
TOS, man.
We made a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got a little bit stuck there. We didn't quite, kill Kel'Thuzad, but I've pretty much seen all the content in vanilla, and I was maining Hunter the whole time. And I kind of enjoy the style of old school Hunter, where it's like very unintuitive, lots of weird tricks you can do, lots of trouble you can get into if you don't do things correctly. I don't know, it's just fun for me. I was really looking forward to playing like the old school Hunter when they still had Dead Zone and all these weird janky issues.
Yeah, I feel like the jankiness is what makes Hunter interesting, though. It's like always
Yeah.
it is. Like
Yeah.
I swear, like that's always been my favorite thing. Like even when there's like just a bunch of like fucking bugs that usually make me like rage, like in a way, like I actually kind of like that they're there because it just feels like it just feels cool. I mean, it's like just like something obviously no one expected to work out at all in any single way.
Yeah.
On a scale of 1,000 to 8 million, how much is everyone else looking forward to the Rockdalar demons being back? Oh,
mm,
those were golden days.
That's gonna be the real grief, because back then, dude, just as a nobody playing on my server, I mean, I guess people on my server knew who I was, but certainly streaming wasn't happening. I got griefed by a few different people and accidentally griefed by people trying to help me for like 3 days when I was doing my Rockdalar
Yeah.
quest.
You have to be doing that
Like-
shit at like 5 a.m.
Don't-
Like you have to do
don't
that
get me
at
wrong.
the most random time.
Yeah. Look, I'm going to get Rockdalar, and then every other Rockdalar on the server is going to decrease the rarity, decrease the value of my Rockdalar. So I
you have to
am
stop everyone else.
incentivized extremely to
Troll
troll you,
everyone.
to despawn your demon, and all I have to do is tag it. And I will actively, that is all I will spend my time doing, unless you pay me an agreed amount that offsets how much I'm. And you can pay me that much to not troll you, or you can pay me 10 times that much to do it for you. Your choice. But otherwise, I'm griefing the fuck.
I mean,
out of you.
honestly, what I would do
Literally.
if
No
I was
sharding. No
someone
server
else,
hopping.
I would literally just find your sleep schedule. That would be it. I would you just wait, just fucking.
Yeah, jokes on you, fucker. I have children. I don't have a sleep schedule. I just don't sleep.
I mean, it's fine. There's always going to be a moment that you're taking a break.
Yeah.
And
Speaking of
Is there? I mean, that's the best time to do it too.
Speaking of sleep schedules, Cauthon adjusted his sleep schedule for launch. He woke up 30 minutes before this podcast.
As well.
And I found out that I'm losing power for 7 hours, like 2 days into the race. So
Oh, dude.
it's gonna
What-
force me to have some pretty weird
Well,
sleep
what-
schedules.
What if you find like a land center? Is that a possibility?
Do
Did
they
you find
have
one?
land centers in America?
24-hour land center. I
mean,
don't know.
Perhaps.
I basically found that out right before I came on this. Is that the place I'm in now that I just moved into? 2 or 3 days in, they're doing power maintenance, so our power is going to be down for like 7 hours. So I pretty much have to find another place to go play if I still want to be involved in the race, or I have to make a very specific sleep schedule that goes to sleep during that exact point of time and hope they don't take longer than that to do the maintenance.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a little wonky.
That's
I'll
still
definitely-
Surprising. Like I would have thought by the time Classic was released, USA would have joined the first world, but apparently you're still a third world country. Like I would have thought.
Isn't there like a way you could have like external like I'm sure there's some jank solution you could find.
Yeah, that's what I'm considering. I pretty much
you can
found this
buy
out right as I
batteries or
got on
something.
the I get a
I mean-
battery powered computer.
Well,
get it-
yeah. I mean, if you have, like the shittier it is, right? The more
Cycle,
authentic the
so you're
classic
like,
experience
can't
is.
stop pedaling, can't stop pedaling.
But yeah, I've
Bike.
got some other trying to decide if I want to try to go and look into generators or just move somewhere else for a week to not have my
Laptop.
power interrupted.
A laptop, bro,
laptop.
and tether your phone, and just have a bunch of external power packs to go through. That's what you're gonna have to deal with. So you need 7 hours of your laptop while you're playing, and you need to be using your phone for that time for your internet, and then boom,
God,
GG.
that sounds awful.
I mean,
I feel like there's an easier solution than that.
I mean, well, streamers they're using their phone right
That's
when they're
pretty
doing their fucking IRL streams, right? So I mean, it doesn't seem that far out to do.
half of Australia raid from.
Wait, how are you
because-
saying third world countries when you have literally the shittiest internet of like any country / continent?
He's in New Zealand. Hello.
Oh, sorry, whatever. They're the same thing.
Speaking of shitty internet, he just froze.
Yep.
Like-
See,
like-
point proven.
All right. So aside from initial launch for Classic, what patch or raid launch are y'all most excited about?
I don't have a single preference whatsoever because I'm a PvPer, right? Like all I really care about is just like my character being cool. Like I don't give a fuck about anything else. I mean that's what like I swear what matters the most to a PvPer is actually like the RPG stuff related to WoW, like everything that's related to like your character design and like how it interacts with other stuff, like that matters. Like I don't like
Yeah.
there's no reason to care about like the tier and that concept because that's just like the extra fluff. Like the
Yeah.
content if you PvP is just in your character itself.
Yeah, I'm excited for. I want Nax and AQ to come out. I started in BC, so I never got to play
you want to ring
the
the
original
dong?
Nax.
The dong?
The dong, yeah. I want to
Yeah.
ring the dong, yeah.
Yeah.
I switched to Warrior after AQ, and I played Warrior and Nex, so I'm looking forward to doing Nex as a hunter this time around. But
Nice,
Yeah.
nice.
I
Cauthon.
gave up on hunters and TBC and switched to warrior then too, but I stuck with them all in vanilla, so I'm gonna
Oh,
do
Fodem.
the same here.
Both of y'all are Fodems. What the heck? Switching to warrior.
no, so I by AQ 40 I was raid leading that, and then I told the guild leader that he was shit at PvP, so he had a big cry about that. And then I switched to so that was the second best guild in BlackRock. It was the best horde guild and the second best guild on the server. So I had friends in the top guild, so I went over to them and it was like, hey, what do you guys need? They needed a warrior at that point, and we went straight into Nex, which turns out you needed a lot of warriors, so that worked out well.
How much did you get for your eBay account?
5 digits.
Oh, Monka what the heck?
Yeah, you got. So I waited until after we killed Kel'Thuzad before I sold him because I had everything, including the loot of Kel'Thuzad. I got like a big premium over the top of all the people that were just like, I got my full set, let's go. So yeah, I got enough to start up like a nice little business. And, yeah.
That was the fun part of recruiting for Nax. You have to be like, which of these warrior applicants is the least likely to sell his stuff the moment he gets 6 Ps?
God.
Okay,
I hope that doesn't happen again in Classic. I mean, it
No,
could
so
very
it-
well, right? But I feel like it's
Nah, but I feel like Blizzard would have better track of that stuff if you do that now.
you
Yeah,
could-
they actually care about it. But I mean, that aside, anyway, is that you didn't actually need so the 6 piece was for the taunt resist to not happen, whereas now you could recover from it. Like people's brains have evolved enough that the level of play for it is still below fucking any heroic boss that we do today. Like, so it's not the be all end all it was back then. But back then you had 40 fucking apes in the server. You're trying to coordinate all of that, and you had these 8 tanks doing this bizarre little star hop and change. And anytime one of them had a taunt resist, the whole engine just fucking broke. People didn't know how to communicate properly, and you wiped. Now you just recover, you'd be okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
back then it was just about being the smartest retard. Like if everyone has like a 40 IQ, you're at a 60 and you're fucking good to go.
Yeah.
it's actually it's interesting because a lot of people on my streams or in my Discord or whatever, they always ask me, who beats what in PvP, or what's the counter to this class, or like who beats this, as if it's just like a 100-0 matchup, rock paper scissors in PvP.
Mhm.
And I always tell people, like, all of my knowledge was based on actual vanilla, where nobody knew what countered what because the player skill was so just absurdly different between each individual player. Nobody had any idea, like, what classes countered what classes in PvP, because
Yeah.
you could like 1v3 people pretty typically back on vanilla, because some people just had no idea how to play the game or their class or whatever. So
What
even
about
I
favorite?
don't.
I think in stuff like well, and it also depends on the experience. I mean, this isn't vanilla, but like let's say it's like Wrath of the Lich King, for example. Like it also isn't even that telegraph where like if you do a duel versus someone, it's like there's never a right answer too, so that it's like things are never solved. So sometimes the right thing is the right thing, or sorry, the wrong thing is the right thing, because there's like so many infinite solutions, and you don't always have that as much in Classic because it's still a little bit simpler in that form. But I mean, that's also the thing. It's not always going to be like super black and white, and it's just something natural from like the older versions of WoW. A lot of classes have become so streamlined in general and so straightforward that they're almost like MOBAs, that it's just very simple for you to just know what beats what, right? But like in those situations, there's times where you just have like an infinite number of possibilities that you can't even just say like, oh yeah, it's impossible for me to ever be X, even if we're both insanely good, because you can constantly do something different to some other option they have.
Yep, that's why the thing I'm looking forward to most in the game is actually Phase 2. Once they release the honor system and everybody is out in the world PvP, because this will be before the battlegrounds come out, right? Those come out in Phase 3.
Yeah.
So in Phase 2, everybody will just be out in the world, just brawling nonstop, and that's probably
Yeah.
my favorite part of vanilla. And then you'll maybe get some answers of questions of what beats what. But for now, I don't think anyone really knows,
Yeah.
because not only are the classes not the same as they were in vanilla, they're mostly the same, but not exactly the same. But everybody's memory and skill level and stuff is going to be so much different that who's to say what class is going to turn out the best at world PvP or whatnot. And
I mean,
I'll
you played Smash, right? You said that.
yeah,
I mean, in a way, it's almost like that. That's what Classic is, right? It's all. I mean, Classic, you can't necessarily compare it to Melee because I don't think it's like that refined, for example. But like, it's just in that same vein where it's like things that people would think were unwinnable. Like, there's always like the way that maybe it's not unwinnable. So you said like it just is always going to differ so greatly that you just will never actually know. And even if you're playing private servers, like you can't even get the best idea just off of playing private servers. Like you'll never really truly know when it comes to something like vanilla.
yeah, for sure. And I think Phase 2, once the world PvP is unleashed, then I think that's when we're going to get all those answers, because nobody really knows for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's not like there's a classic server just dedicated to PvP. Yeah, it's not a thing. It's not like where people did that for like the arena, like for Wrath of the Lich King, they did that. They had the arena tournament for like, and a lot of people did play that for a while that were really good. And then you had kind of those answers, but it's not the same with classic. Like even if you really like classic, like you're not just dedicated to just PvPing on classic. There's so much more to it. So you're not always going to get the best of the best people doing that.
Yeah.
So you just will never get the right options, even if you're on a private server, because you're already like making yourself a super niche group just by playing on one.
Yeah. Okay, so sort of wrapping up here shortly, Cauthon, what best advice for someone who has not played Classic, and they're coming from like BFA or a recent expansion that's totally different from Classic, what can they expect going into Classic?
My best advice would probably be to not play a melee. If you're coming in and you don't know what you're doing, leveling a melee class 1 to 60 is very, very difficult.
What do you mean? You don't like eating food after every
Yeah.
mob as a warrior?
Get ready to die anytime you get like 2 or 3 mobs constantly just sitting around regenning. Those classes can level fast if you have very specific like groups or dungeon grind groups, or you have a lot of people to like help you with your class quests and get you geared up and stuff right away. But in terms of a first class, when you don't really know what you're getting into, stuff like warrior and rogues, which are popular classes later on in WoW, very, very bad classes to start with when you're not knowledgeable in classic WoW.
Yeah, makes sense. But I mean, obviously both those are very good at raid and PvP, like down the road.
Yep.
But yeah, just
I
initially.
think they make really good alts because as the game goes on, like months and years into it, they become much better. And so if you're getting into the game for the first time, leveling a character that's kind of more like the current WoW's leveling process, which is playing a hunter if you're playing by yourself and not with a bunch of friends, it's a good class to start with, or a mage or a warlock, something that is really self-sufficient. You can level it pretty quickly. You can experience some of the level 60 content. All those classes can farm really well, and that's important because if you do want to switch to one of those better endgame classes like a warrior or rogue, once you kind of know how the game works and once you have money, leveling is so much faster. It's going to be days and days faster if you actually have some money to buy those characters gear, or you kind of know how the leveling process works. So
Yeah.
definitely recommend people start with like kind of the ranged classes that are easier to solo with if they're just getting into it.
Yeah. Makes sense. Okay, guys, we're gonna open it up for a quick Q&A. So if you have any questions for us, or anything classic related, go ahead and shoot them in chat, and we will answer away. In the meantime, while we're waiting for questions, I don't think we covered it, but what do y'all think? What do y'all think on realistic times for? So you said 3 to 4 days played for 60. So what are the realistic times for clearing Rag and Ani? Because obviously you have to, unlock the rep, which shouldn't take too long, but then you have to get some, better gear and obviously
You'll
get a
see it
group
go
of
down at the end
people.
of the first week.
You think so? You think it'll be what?
I think a lot of the
Less
times
than
will
10
be
days?
I think a lot of the time will be a bit quicker than people are realizing because they haven't factored in the acts of degeneracy. Like, I mean, already you see, right? Like I've seen millions of gold in live up for grabs to just fucking tag mobs for people. Like there's so much extra over and above shit you'd never factor in. You don't need, for some of these, you don't need everyone to be 60 or to be there. And then there's no actual prog time, right? Like everything is a one bang the whole way through. So it's literally just the only challenge is getting there. It's not like, hey, you get there and now you've got to actually be able to prog this and do this content. You could not even be fucking 60 and you'll be able to one bang that content. It's what the times were back then. So that's fine. I think you won't see a lot of groups do it, but there will be one or two groups that are dedicated enough that will bang that out at the end of the first week.
Yeah. Cauthon,
Groups that are dedicating themselves like 18 plus hours a day of actually sitting there logged into the game playing.
Yeah.
That are playing on LAN together and blah blah blah. Like
Yeah.
way more degenerate than people realize.
Cauthon, what are heroes' plans for, like, do y'all have like have to be 60 in 2 weeks before you kill Rag, or are y'all
We're going more for the 1 week. Much like he said, I think that somebody will probably kill it at the end of week 1, maybe early week 2. It's definitely going to be very, very difficult to kill Rag on week 1, mostly just because getting a number of people to level 60 and still having time to clear it in week 1 is the hard part. It's not so much like the encounters themselves are difficult.
Yeah, it's just the getting there.
But I do think that probably somebody will do it at the end of week 1, because if nothing else, there'll probably be some, mega guild or mega server where that guild just swoops up all of the people that hit 60 the fastest and puts them into one big glob and just throws it at MC or something. Like I know a lot of guilds
handful of ringers.
Yeah, I know a lot of guilds have 70, 80 people that they're like, okay, half of these people will probably get to 60 real fast and we can do it. I think most of those guilds will be in for a surprise, and they're going to see that not nearly 40 people get to 60 as close as they're thinking.
Yeah.
But there will be, some huge servers where there's just going to be like really, really quick levelers of every class, and someone's just going to swoop them all up with a core of 20 people that know exactly what they're doing and probably get it done.
Yeah, I think you're also like anyone who was shooting for very, very high numbers. If they were like, right, we need 40, so we're bringing 80, we're bringing 90, we're bringing 100 people. That's good because you are going to just get over 40 you're going to get a huge number of people who get, it's level 30, level 40, and they're like, cool, I experienced it. And now I'm experiencing logging off and not really doing this that much. And that's okay, right? Like that's fine. But the people who are like, yeah, we got together our 40, these people are going to bang it out. Like, no, they're not. Like, so,
Yeah, I honestly think that's generous too. I think it's going to be a lot less than 40, the people that are, trying to get 80 or 90. Because the thing is, I think people are still underestimating how quick solo leveling is going to be. When everybody thinks of the times, they think, like everyone's going to be faster than Joanna, like, doing 3 or 4 days. Like, maybe I'm not playing a hunter, but I'll be right behind them. I definitely think that if people aren't super practiced on a solo route and if they're not playing one of the best solo classes, it's going to take them like probably over a week to hit 60. There are really efficient dungeon grind groups where classes that aren't typically fast soloers can get to 60 on the first week as well. But there's a different pitfall with that approach to leveling, and that's keeping 5 people on the same sleep schedule over like 5 or 6 days straight is extremely difficult to do. And
cocaine is a hell of a drug.
Yeah, once you get like 3 or 4 days in, and people start, falling off asleep when everyone's like, okay, we're gonna stay up 40 hours, then sleep 6, then play 20, then sleep 6. That very unlikely that people are gonna be able to maintain that past
Honestly,
like 3 or 4 days.
I'm actually worried about someone like dying from degeneracy or some shit like that.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
well,
it's probably gonna happen.
My friend
that's
told
what
me
they're
he's doing a 72-hour sprint. I'm like, dude, I don't think that's healthy, man.
No, bro.
We're suffering from a population crisis with massive over density. Everyone lost is like the world is in a better place. Just let it happen. It's good.
So a couple questions. Actually, we were just sort of talking about this from Frizzle. What % of players do you think will not make it to 60 / change class before they hit 60? I mean,
Wait, what if?
sort of
Sorry,
hard to
this
give
is
out.
actually back on the last thing, but I think the efficient thing is if you do you just do the naps as your sleep schedule, and you just keep taking multiple naps, and you can get, if you're taking multiple naps per day, I think it's like 6 of them, you'll have less sleep hours and more play hours that way, but you'll actually be more rested.
Yeah,
by
well,
doing
that's you can do that if you're solo leveling, but it's hard if you're doing a group.
Yeah, to get everyone to do that.
leveling,
Yeah.
Because I heard
You go.
there was even on big channels. I think Stay Safe was interviewing some rogue who was going for first of his class, and he had this plan where him and his dungeon grind group, they're like, okay, we've got this plan, we've got this all mapped out. It's only going to take us like 85 hours to get to 60. And I think Stay Safe asked him, well, okay, when are your sleeping hours? And they said, oh, I'm not really going to sleep. We're just going to man through it. And like, you really, even
There's no way.
if one person can do that, do you really think that 5 people are going to be able to do that and like maintain a solid, pace through the dungeon the whole time when they've been up for 3.5? Like, it's so ludicrous to think that is going to work. Like,
Yeah.
it actually worries me that people are deluded enough to think that you could have a 5-man dungeon group go like 85 hours, basing your time to 60 off of optimum play conditions, and nobody's just gonna pass out or fall asleep. Like, that's like dangerously deluded.
Yeah.
To answer the question, I think a lot of people won't quit or change class, but I think you'll get a lot of people have that epiphany or realization that like that's not what this is. This isn't what you do on live, where you're like race to 6, race to whatever the max level is, race your gear, race through the end content, like these fucking peaks and troughs of content cycles. This is the celebration of what was. This is like for all those people who didn't get to experience this, and you hear other people talk about it through rose-tinted glasses, you get to experience it. For the people that did experience it, you get to have that walk down memory lane. Like, there's all these great things. What it isn't, we'll see, I guess. But what I suspect it isn't is, just straight up a replacement for the game where you put all those same degenerate practices and approach. It doesn't work to how things were back then. And I think a lot of people will have that realization, change how they play, and they'll actually have more fun and maybe even play a bit more as a result but that will be spread out over time instead of like just fucking mongoing everything till they drop.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that goes to say, like, I think, like, the whole, like, method race to world first and all that thing, all this, stuff. Like, I think everyone knows that, obviously this isn't the actual world first, right? Because that happened, 2004, whenever it was. I think this is more of just like I mean, like you said, it's a celebration, right? Like it's fun that this is being released. Like everyone's like super nostalgic about it. Everyone wants to play, and it's just like everyone's just hyping it up. Like I don't think
But
we're
not everyone does understand. Like I was watching Scripe the other day, and someone said in his chat, like, "Hey, World First has already been achieved 15 years ago," and he got super fucking triggered. He was like, "You're a fucking moron!" Like he was really fucking angry at them, and it's like, dude, it has been done 15 years ago.
yeah.
So,
I mean,
like,
I I don't know. I mean, I think some people. I mean, speed leveling is one thing. Like, there's one thing to speed level because you just like to do it, right? But I don't think anyone's trying to if a Cauthon gets world first hunter, like it's not like no one's gonna forget Joanna existed, right? Like I think you know I think that's still there. I don't think anyone's trying to steal their thunder, or I saw some post on, I think it was the Method channel or the Wildhead post or something about like one of it was like the world first guild that killed Rag said something like, this is so stupid, y'all are just trying to steal our thunder, like I
that's
don't think
retarded
any
as well.
like
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's like trying to think that. I think that's stupid to think that this classic launch is gonna like steal their thunder, steal their fame or recognition or whatever, because it's like a whole different ball game. Like it's not even the same like game really. I
Yeah.
mean it
If
is,
anything, it
but
made them more popular with all the hype leading up to
yeah.
this.
Yeah.
But what I guess I will say is, like from back then, like we competed for World First and Next, and we did pretty well across a bunch of it. And if someone who did that and you hold on or think any relevancy or importance is applied to that, you are fucking delusional. Like I look back at what we did back then, and then I compare the difficulty to now, and it's like, oh man, that was just fucking chump amateur shit. Like who gives a fuck? Like it doesn't matter. So yeah, okay, there's people doing the content now and not replacing it. They're just repeating the same chucklehead bullshit as before. It's not difficult, it's not relevant, and no one gives a shit. Shut up. Like it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rating itself is not is by far the least interesting thing of Classic to me. Like
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
competing against other people is what I enjoy from the old
It's
school.
it's interesting to experience it that first time as hey, I got the lore, I saw like what was going on in this patch or whatever, but there's no, like I remember when we first did Molten Core, and you had a bunch of shamans standing out back just rezzing people as they died. They just didn't get close enough to be in combat, and they just sat out of combat rezzing people, and you had like 200 fucking rezzers. Like, well, not 200, I'm exaggerating, but like there was no challenge to it back then. That wasn't about that. The game was totally different. It's fine.
Yeah.
There's not some like giant achievement that you should have at the top of your fucking resume that people are bringing into jeopardy. Like, understand the insignificance of that and be fine with it. Like, just be fucking zen with it. It's okay.
Hey, I don't know, dude. They had the server first achievements back. Gonna get those achievements and flaunted in Slash 2. um,
Hey, with the no changes, is cascading. Cascading was great. You could just like fucking jack other people's instances and get multiple. Like, you want to do MC 10 times this week and get loot from every single one? Let's fucking go. Cascade those instances.
I don't know a lot of the specifics that they're changing. I think they're trying to make it as close
No
to.
changes!
I think they're trying to make it as close to vanilla as possible, right? I mean, except for like layering and stuff like that.
Who fucking knows? And if they find something that's different, they'll just be like, no, it's not changed.
Yeah.
I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
Who is the world first for
Class?
multi-core?
The guild?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was God, what was it? It was like
Okay, because I'm looking at the method website, right? And if I'm looking at the dates,
It might have been
Really?
like a Discord post or something, like a.
because
I
it,
don't remember
it
who it
says
was.
January 20th for
Yeah,
one
set.
guild, and then it says yeah, okay, but the order is fucked up on this, right? Unless I'm looking at this wrong.
The
No,
guild name
so
is like.
it took like 2 months to go from Majordomo to Ragnaros. That's right.
No, I
And
know,
they-
no, but it's talking about the last kill, and then it shows like the first.
What
like
was the guild
the
name?
date at the top, the one it says at the top, it says Fires of Heaven, but it says that they're not the first one to get it when you click on their thing, and then for the Ascent, it has a way later date. So the way this is organized is confusing as fuck.
it's per boss. So
Oh
that-
wait,
that
oh
does-
oh no
yeah.
now I see. Okay, never mind.
yeah.
Yeah, I realize it's per boss. Okay, yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, the US public education system live on display.
Yep. I was not looking at that at all. Should have looked at that. This is why I'm a math major.
Why
all
am I
right?
flying to your country tomorrow? I hope I'm in a fucking mass shooting.
What do you mean?
What the heck?
This is why this is why I'm a math major, okay, not an English major. Besides, how can you be complaining about my comprehension of American while speaking American? Like that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. Like,
Speaking American, no man. No.
yeah.
Speaking
Hello?
English.
No, bro. Speaking American, God.
Anyways,
Smiley
Sid
face.
Duck has a question. What's the best race for Hunter for both factions, and why?
All right. Well, I'll mostly do the Horde stuff because I'm far more familiar with Horde than Night Elf. But for Horde, it boils down pretty simply to if you are more interested in leveling fast, like PvE content and raid damage, you're going to want to go with Troll. If you're more interested in PvP, you're going to want to go with Orc. And if you hate yourself, you're going to want to go Tauren.
For
What do you-
Alliance, it's Night Elf purely for aim shot out of meld. It's very satisfying.
Same.
That's it. Like forget
For the
everything else, just aim shot out of meld.
Nah, not even that, bro. It's the flippy jumps.
Flippy
Flippy
jumps, yeah,
jumps.
flippy jumps
Yeah,
are not
Night Elf has the best
Uh.
animations, and I will always play Night Elf Hunter.
Yeah. So Night Elf Hunter is actually like hands down the best leveler in the game up till the 30s or 40s. Horde cannot match Alliance times 1 to 30. Like Alliance is just faster by like a good hour or so at least. And it's only 40 plus where Horde can really catch up. And then Night Elf Hunter is the fastest on the ally side. Dwarf Hunters are good for specific things in PvP, like against rogues especially. Dwarf Hunters are really, really good. They're definitely don't. I think the default choice would be Night Elf Hunter over there. But yeah, one of the biggest things people don't realize about Tauren Hunters is there's been all that talk about leeway and how Tauren melee have those extra hitboxes and stuff. And that's great for the melee, but for a Tauren Hunter, all that stuff backfires, and it makes it so when you're trying to kite people in medium range, you suddenly find yourself or everybody in your dead zone because your hitbox is so huge. It's like, and yeah, it's pretty significant when a normal hunter can shoot things like 8 to 12 yards away from them, or what appears to be 8 to 12 yards away pretty easily. And a Tauren hunter, if anyone's that same distance away, it's pretty much going to be dancing on the line of your mid range, and
Yeah.
you're never going to be able to kite things once they get anywhere close to you.
Wouldn't it be harder for you to get dead zone though on a Tauren as well? So like if you're
No.
fighting a mage,
It would be
No,
the same,
It works
it's just-
against you, but not ever for you. It doesn't just change the measurements. It just
Instead of
some-
like
some things are measured center to center, and some things are measured center to edge your hitbox. So
Mhm.
you get the way that's bad for you, but not the way that's good for you. You just straight up get double fucked by it.
okay.
Yeah, and you can think of like even best case scenario for Tauren, it would be more like their dead zone is changed from 4 to 8 yards to like 7 to 11 or something. But in reality, when they're moving and the other person is moving too, it ends up being like considerably more than 11 yards. It gets to the point where as a Tauren, you're never going to be able to like open up range again to start shooting once somebody gets on top of you.
Wait, but your melee range is there, right? Well, that's what I was thinking. Like if you're fighting a mage, right? you would have a extended melee range, so it'd be more awkward for the mage to dead zone you properly. It's mostly what I'm getting at.
Nah, it would be just as easy because they could. If a mage stood normally like 7 yards away from, a troll
Okay, yeah.
hunter, for example, they would just stand like 10 or so away from the Tauren. It would have the same effect. The Tauren they could still stay out of the Tauren's increased melee range, but the Tauren still wouldn't be able to auto them or auto select them because
If anything, they have to traverse less distance to get into the dead zone, and then it's the same pace of movement to maintain the dead zone. So it actually makes it easier for them to get to the zone.
I definitely do not recommend Tauren if you have any intention of PvPing seriously. You're going to cause yourself so much grief down the line if you're trying to PvP as a Tauren. As a hunter, I mean, Tauren are fine for everything else, but
if you're playing Night Elf, you should also be female then as well, right? Over male, because the larger models are the males than the female. I mean, no one's gonna play male Night Elf. I mean, logistically, right?
It's pretty much the difference is super minute for everything else. It's just the male Taurens are absolutely gigantic.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really only everything else is manageable, but it's a huge difference for male Taurens. Like if you're gonna play a Tauren hunter, at least play a female.
Yeah, that is true. All right, I don't see any other questions, so I think that about wraps it up. Do y'all have anything else you want to say about Classic? No.
Remember to
I feel
sleep.
like we mentioned it.
Remember to sleep.
Yeah.
It's a marathon, not a sprint.
I swear it's about the naps. Exactly why. It's about the naps. You don't want to die. You can't finish the race if you die.
That's sad but true.
That's the true way to finish. That's the only real.
As long as everyone else in front of you dies, then you're good. And that applies both in game and out of game. Because if the other people die while questing, you're still alive, then you're going to be ahead of them. So, don't pull more than you need. Don't stay up longer than you need.
Thanks for your sage advice, Dilly.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, guys. That wraps up episode 4 of the True Shot Lodge podcast. This was the classic episode. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we will be on, obviously, Twitch. You can check the VOD. We will be on YouTube and iTunes. And hopefully this week we'll also be on Spotify. So go check out the podcast on those platforms. Thank you, Cauthon, for hanging out with us.
Oh, yeah, thanks for having me on.
And go check him out on his Twitter, or not Twitter. Well, yes, Twitter, Twitch. He will be streaming the world first speed leveling on Classic on Monday. Hopefully you can get your internet situated, or power situated, not internet. But yeah.
Well, I'll figure something out. Should be fun.
But yeah, thank you everyone for joining us, and that is it.
Sweet.